looking at figures, and that's what we do getting into this conversation. The Secretary General of the Jubilee Party is Jeremiah Kioni, and he is in the hot seat this morning as we get into vital conversations for the day. SG, good morning.
Morning, everybody.
How are you doing?
Like all Kenyans, wake up to many things, thanking God for being alive, but always sorrowful for the things happening around us in this country.
Indeed.
Yeah, yesterday was not a good day. The last couple of days, we have been treated to the most, horrible thing. Death of a young person, that 1-year-old man dying in the hands of the people who are supposed to take care of you. Those are the kind of things that make us a little sad every day we wake up.
Indeed.
And not a little sad. It's really worrying, horrifying. And you keep trying to do something that can help us get out of this mess. Yes.
That's true. And we're going to look into a little bit more of that. And unfortunately, I keep saying, and I've said for the last couple of weeks, that it should be very difficult for us to find some of these horrible stories, but I think it's getting more and more difficult to not find them.
Yes.
On a lighter note, someone said that perhaps you should give me your hat. I complete the outfit if we're going to go red. Let Dennis welcome you to today's show with our proverb. It's from Uganda.
That's very tough ones. I hope today he has something.
Let's see what he's taken his delegated responsibility to.
Yeah. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. It is a country that is the source of the River Nile. So, as well as Africa's tallest mountains, the Rwenzori, still in that country, and the rich biodiversity that the country has: 10 national parks, 60 protected areas, and over 1,000 bird species. So, SG, if you are a person who loves bird watching, Uganda is the place to be. And not just birds, they equally have 50% of the world's gorillas. So those the gorillas, as they say, they're close to us. They are our cousins. You could go and just say hi to them, But the proverb today, a bird will always use the feathers of another bird to build its nest.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Yes, I think from a more positive point is it's good to use the wisdom, the experience of others for you to know how to navigate some issues. But the misfortune of others could also be the fortune of others.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We now have this guy called Dragat. He's called Dragat, the DIG. Whom I joined Kenyans in saying that he should have left office a couple of days ago. But when he leaves, another one will be appointed. So those will be the feathers of Lagat.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an interesting take.
But you forgot that in Uganda also we have one of the longest serving presidents in the continent.
39 years.
39 years in power. So that's perhaps something we should add to the many things we should know Uganda for.
And perhaps something else that we should add, even as we hear of that interpretation, is that, since Sunday, Kenya has been thrown into a whirlwind of questions. Questions are demanding for accountability, demanding for justice when it comes to certain things, because Albert Omondi Ojwang was murdered. He did not hit his head by himself against the wall or, plunge himself off a cliff somewhere. He was murdered, and that blood is on the hands of someone or some people of whom we are yet to know. We do know that IPOA has said that they're ready to charge 3 people. One of them has already been named. We do not know, but we do know that Kenyans will ask questions as to the rationale of why that person would be charged over another. Now, while all that is happening, something which may go unbeknownst to very many people is that around this same time, 2 more bodies of individuals were found.
My goodness.
A post-mortem on the bodies of 2 men abducted in Kerio Valley and later executed has revealed the extent of torture they underwent at the hands of suspected law enforcers. Families of Simon Yego, 45, and Collins Kipiatich, 22, were present yesterday during the exercise that left them broken as they looked at the mutilated bodies recovered in Rongai, Nakuru on the 1st of June 2025. That's just 12 days ago. According to a report by government pathologist Dr. Titus Ngunglungu, which the Standard has seen, Kipiatich was strangled and physically assaulted by his killers. The cause of death was asphyxia caused by manual neck compression. The lungs collapsed. The body had injuries on the neck, back, ears and chest, the report said. In part, the further revealed that Kipiatich's hands had been chopped off at the wrist. He had countless injuries on his body with blood clots as a result of physical beating. There were marks on the neck which also showed he was strangled with a string, said David Kuria, human rights defender present during the exercise. The post-mortem revealed that Yego also suffered the same fate, with indications that he was suffocated. The cause of death was asphyxia due to covering pressure to the mouth and nose. He also had his hands chopped off at the wrist. Dr. Ngulungu said this in his report. The report further indicated that the deceased had suffered brain injuries due to blunt trauma to his head, with other injuries distributed to his chest, legs and back. The mouth and nose were deformed. These show that they were tortured for a long time. This was not a beating that happened for just a few minutes, said Kuria. Yego and Kipiatich were abducted on the same day in Tot, Elgeyo Marakwet, on the 30th of May. And their lifeless bodies were found dumped in Kapnyangale village, their legs tied in ropes. According to Benjamin Yego, a brother to Yego, no one should experience this form of torture in a free country, regardless of their offence. The government must own up to this atrocity and those behind the action arrested. That's the story that we carry in the Standard this morning. Unfortunately, this appears to be the situation that is being dealt with too many a time. And I keep saying that one time is too many, but this is the situation that we face. Albert Omondi Ojwang, that story is front and center. But look at this that we see. Two gentlemen abducted by who were said to be law enforcers at one point. And we've read the budget yesterday, and there are protests going on in the city. And now we are seated with you where leadership and governance in the way in which it should be upheld in this country is wanting. Jeremiah?
Very sad. Really a very sad affair. And if you going through the kind of torture they went through is exactly what we heard of Ojwang. You know, this time they are not telling us he banged his head against the wall, but you can see, you can associate the same injuries that with the post-mortem that was given to us of this young man, Albert Ojwang. So you can actually see how terrible this country or how far we have sunk. When Isaac Hassan, and I'm happy that he's back into the country, was giving, he was being questioned by members of Parliament yesterday. I think he also said that in the last 4 months, we have lost 20 lives in the hands of police.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the two gentlemen you again led,
in Tot
and Yego and Simon are part of the 20. But it goes to tell us how much our institutions have failed. Before we've been here and we've talked about institutional capture. When we were giving ourselves, and I think I need to say something which has just struck to me when I was coming here and wondering what is it that is perhaps causing some of these individuals to behave the way they are behaving. This is like the people in power are using the old constitution to help them, or they must be reading parts of the old constitution because why we came up with institutions like IPOA was because these are things we used to hear during the Kanu regime or under the regime that was there before we gave ourselves the multi-party democracy and the new constitution. And I do not know, we need to find out whether at any one time there were even interns during the Moi regime, because they are replaying exactly what was being done when we were fighting for multi-party democracy. But it is also telling I think it must have been last week, this month of June, 11th of June actually, huko pande ya Kinangop in my home county of Nyandarua, where this lady lost her child when in police custody.
Yes.
And what transpired there is different from what we are now seeing. The OCS, the officer in charge of that police post, was immediately interdicted. So why the double standard? Why is it that Ragat is still in office? He should have left earlier than yesterday. There cannot be two standards when you're managing these institutions. But also, IPOA. A lot must be said about the failure of IPOA to live up to the expectations of our constitution. IPOA are supposed to oversight the police independently. But what I've seen in the last couple of days is members of IPOA being flanked by the police officers. And they're saying we are going to investigate this case. And they're supposed to be dependent of the people. In fact, we are receiving reports on what they are doing from the police officers. And for as long as IPOA continues behaving that way, we can expect more police officers to continue corroborating us and killing our young people, killing us, because there is nothing, there is no fear, there is no individual culpability. You know, people are not being held responsible for the atrocities that they commit as individuals. Because there is nobody who should say that they corroborated Ojwang because they were doing it on behalf of us as the state. That's not the way we would want any one of us treated when he's the heads of the police. When you behave that way, it is because you've gone out of what we mandated you as Kenyans to do whenever it is that you have one of us under custody. Na pale tulikuwa tunafikiri ya kwamba police station ni pahali ya kuhudumiwa, sasa imekuwa ni pahali ya kushughulikiwa. Ukipatikana na askari ni askari, ujue sasa watakushughulikia. So, and you can see this guy was apprehensive. He was asking, is the Fred or the brother? He was asking, how is it in police cells?
Is it safe? Yes.
Is it safe? You know, he could tell. It's like, and you really don't want to think of what the person who was talking over the other side of the call is going through. It must be terrible. The mother, the wife, you know, at that 1 year old is when everybody is seeing, enjoying or starting to celebrate what did God give us in form of a child, son, father, you know, and all that is taken away from us. So it's a very sad time for us, a country, a time that we must make sure that we all come together to bring about changes. We are just about a year down the line since we lost quite a number of young people, the Gen Zs, during the last year's demonstrations as a result of failed policies that were included among many other bills, the finance bill, now perhaps the Finance Act. And many of us have been saying that 25th of June should be marked as a holiday. And I came with my heart here because maybe nobody has ever explained this, but the red color, and it was there even with the TNA. Why it's picked is because it reminds us of those who fought for the independence of this country. And not just independence, who have fought to liberate us from many things. And in that category now falls the likes of the Gen Zs, the Rex Masai, and of course Albert. He died because he did a tweet against a person,
allegedly,
so to speak.
Allegedly.
And I was asking myself, if it's a question of how many people have said things you do not like about you on social media, then we will be corroborating each other on a daily basis. And I think those in positions of authority needs to perhaps be taken through a training of how do you behave, because this is part of us. There's nothing you're going to do about it. I remember the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, joking with Maraga. I don't know whether you can remember that scenario, where Maraga had woken up one morning and complained about the insults that he was receiving from the social media, and the president was telling him, welcome to our world. We are used to this. When we were trying to do a law to regulate this, these are the issues we go through on a daily basis. And I know I have also received my share of insults as SG of Jubilee, blah blah, in the last couple of.
And yet, you never felt as though you needed to torture or kill somebody.
One of the things that you do is that you can avoid leading it. I mean, if you go through, you can scheme and see. If I internalize this, it's just going to hurt me. Yeah. So just ignore it and move on. What benefit does it take for you to lead it and get hurt and then go out and look for that person and start hurting? I mean, it shows we have quite a number of people in public offices who have not been properly grilled as to or taught or counseled as to how they should deal with some of these issues. We cannot kill people on account of just calling you anything on a tweet.
And SG, there is the talk of double standards when it comes to dealing with deaths that we continue to experience in the country. If you remember June 25th, the deaths of Gen Zs, Kenyans who died during the protest, up to date, there is no clear understanding on where the investigations are. We saw the death of Member of Parliament Ongondo Were, and the speed with which the police went in to investigate the matter, arrest the suspects, and we saw how good our police are when it comes to doing investigations and bringing people to book. But then again, there is this subject of Albert, talk about the individuals in tort, talk about the Narok killings as well, and investigations into these incidences. And there is seemingly a lot of time is being taken by the very same police who did a very good job while investigating Ongondo's death. Which then leads us to the next question. Does the police exist to serve a specific crop of individuals in the country while the masses, you're on your own?
And that is what was being answered by the creation of IPOA, to try to the best that we could remove the cover-ups. Because what we are now seeing here is a clear case of cover-up. If Albert was picked in the wee hours of the night from a police station, and there was no break-in, there was only switching off of cameras, CCTV cameras. These guys have the truth. The DCI fella knows exactly what happened, and every time they come before either the Senate or the National Assembly, they are just perfecting their art of covering up. Because they know. I mean, this is not somewhere in the village. It's not somewhere in the bush. We're talking of Central Police Station. Somebody walks in, he is given a rimandi to go with, anarudisha kama gunia ya viazi usiku. Anakona gari. I mean, what is this that we are being treated? Everybody who was involved in that whole process should be interdicted. These officers who are covering up, the DCI, Kaja himself must be having a proper file. Even huyu mtu wa NIS anaitwa nani? Nurdin Haji. All these people have this information. And the issue of Wele tells you that if we want to uncover anything in this country, like this. Yeah. We have cameras along the roads. You can tell vehicles moving from point A to point, and they have all these. So there is nothing like saying that you're investigating. These people know who did this, where it was done, even how it was. And the fact that we are also being told, I don't know how accurate it is, that Ragat is likely to have been physically present during the place where the torturing was being done. In any case, he is the one who gave instructions for this guy to be removed from all the way from Homa Bay. I am told he was picked on motorbikes into a vehicle and to Nairobi. So he must have remained in charge of the whole process, including the corroborating.
You know, Jeremiah,
and then you can see the level of impunity. We are back in the streets. Correctly so, this demonstration should be there. And even yesterday, they were still using live bullets. I mean, you could see confrontation. These people and police officers coming to you, covered like terrorists.
Despite a court order.
And there's a court order. Wanajifunika kama jasusi, wamekuja kukuchurikia. So it's just a matter of, and we thank God that cameras are there, phones are there, they are all recording. Imagine if you are in a place where you are certainly secluded and he is aware it is only you and him. You are dead.
You're dead. But it is interesting because things kind of take a different turn, where we're now essentially being told without being told that investigations are taking place and that you need to allow due process. We heard just as much come from the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, C.S. Murukomen, when he said, well, investigations are taking place. They're not able to say 1 to 3. Allow the process to essentially. We heard Junet Mohammed yesterday in Parliament say the words that we are spending too much time grieving over something. We have work to be done, essentially. And he said, if you're looking for something to grieve over, kill your own son and then you can grieve. I don't know if it was temporary insanity. I don't know what was happening in that particular case. But these are the things that we hear. How do we resonate or connect between the two?
It's under the powers of the privileged position of members of Parliament to just tell us anything that comes to his mind. I'm sure he was on the floor of Parliament when he said
he was.
You can't hold that against him, like you cannot take him to court because he has the privileges of. But that does not allow you.
I'm sorry.
When you're on the floor
of the House, you basically can say whatever you want.
You have the protection that it's a privileged place where you literally almost talk, but doesn't allow you to talk carelessly. It reflects on you. You remember, and that's why you remember Farah Malim saying, if I were the one, I would deal with 5,000 of them. Nothing was done to him. He then goes to this other side and says, Nini ya mama yenyu. The other side, he gets away with it. We are on this other side, and after the demonstration, William himself comes and calls all of us criminals. It's a terrorism act. So what has happened in this country is that there is now loss of total. If there's anything like that, there's no trust that we have on those in power, including those in those offices, the police officers, because we know where they derive their authority from. And it is a situation that we are going to be in for the coming number of days until our general elections. That's the only hope that is there now. When I hope you and I hope we are all on the same, or Kenyans, we are on the same page, we bring around changes, because we need to get back that faith in our systems. And I know, Dennis, you must have been much smaller than you are today back in 2002. 2002, I don't know where you are, but we were able to remove that one-party state. We got rid of Kanu regime that had done all this kind of havoc to us for a period of about 24 years. And when that happened, Kenyans woke up and they would see a police officer receiving bribes from a matatu. They would land for him, get hold of him, and take him to the cells. Why? Because people have now gained back confidence and trust in the system. We are now at a point where it's all gone. And the next person who takes power must know the kind of responsibility or expectations that are going to be there. And that's what has happened. Remember, even as you talk about Junet on the floor of the House, up to today, the army is still in the streets. They passed that motion to allow the army to be caught, and they have never done another motion to rescind what they had done. So even as you see young people going to the streets, and it doesn't have to be just young people. You never know what it will take to bring out everybody into the streets very soon. At the back of the mind, you know that you have members of Parliament who unleashed the army to Kenyans to date. And that doesn't make them have sleepless nights. They wonder, why are we wasting so much time talking about it, in the words of Mohammed Junet? Why are we grieving? But remember also, Arachi said something the other day. Yeah. You remember Beatrice Arachi, I think, said a similar statement during the Gen Zs. It was at Bomas. The very unfortunate thing that we wish to nobody, you don't want people to remember you for the words you said that were wrong, and those words never leave.
They don't.
They stick in our minds. I was in secondary school when I think a member of Parliament, Rugai, said that those of us who are speaking against the government then, like Ojwang has done by writing something against the performance of a person, those of us who are up against the corrupt ways of the KANU regime, alisema tukatwe masikio. I still remember that. And he died a long time ago. But I remember the words more than I remember anything else he did.
You won't forget how that made you feel, will you?
Junet, Farah Maharim na wengine. These things you keep saying because you are at privileged position are things that you make you be remembered for. And unfortunately, you can get your own family associated with statements of that nature. We are responsible not for just today, but for what many, many years after you are gone. And the people you may leave suffering are your own kids.
Indeed.
I mean, are your own members of family. And this is why I urge those in positions of authority, whatever nature, if you think there is a blogger who wakes up every morning to irritate you, avoid reading anything that he has done on the tweet.
Absolutely, you can look.
You can even block it.
Yeah.
You don't need to. Don't bother. That's how I deal with it. And you'll continue. The other guy will continue. Siku moja mtakutana na msalimiane wabi huko bado huko.
And then we move on.
Yeah, and
we move on.
It's a very sad thing.
Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni, is here with us this morning. You know, it's interesting because combining that which I said just as we were coming to the break, whereby folks are saying, you know what are we doing? Why is it so difficult that something as abhorrent as murder, in the manner in which it was done, we are still fiddling with the idea that perhaps, maybe somebody should be brought to book, or that the person who may have been behind it, who maybe should give way for these questions to be asked and investigations to be done, is holding on to power as though their life depended on it. How is it that we are still having conversations with death? We are sitting and looking at murder, we're looking at impunity, we're looking at mismanagement, we're looking at bad behavior, and we somehow think that we can have a conversation at the same table and that the enemy will not devour us. How?
They say it starts rotting from the head. If we are rotten from the top, then all of us who are under the top will feel covered. If the top was accountable, or those in charge of the management of the country were people who have respect of themselves, then without doubt those serving under them will be fearful of their acts, and especially when they become acts that are condemned by the whole country. You need to even go outside in the boundaries of this country. Again, what Boniface Mwangi was narrating to us is anything to go by. That would not have been done to a person coming from a country which is respected, or a country with leaders who have a voice that is respected across the country, across the globe. So we've lost many things. We've lost a voice, we've lost respect, we've lost pride, we've lost dignity. All of them at the national level and even at the local level. And again, the thing is that it's very annoying to keep talking about this when somebody is still there. He's going to earn his salary at the end of the month. People are grieving. Others are now coming to say sorry, or I made a call to the family. You making mockery of the whole situation. But of course, when you look at it, what else can we do? Of course, one of the things that I think we should do, and is being done very well by the young people in this country, is to fight for that space. Fight for what it is that you think should be done differently. The fact that they're able to come out and demonstrate like they did yesterday, it saves one other life, two other lives, because then there is a little bit of caution that will be perhaps seen when police officers arrest others tomorrow and the day after. So you must fight for the space that was fought for by others. I bring in the issue of multi-party democracy. You remember during the Azimio time, there was a serious attack on the political parties, including Jubilee, ODM, even Wiper. We were being attacked. Why? Because these are the platforms that you use to voice out against some of these atrocities. And the fighting that you see during some of such issues are meant to secure us from this kind of behaviors. So I would encourage everybody to fight for the space you are having. If you're in the judiciary and you are receiving telephone calls as to how perhaps you should make a ruling, fight for that space. If you have anything left for you, if you are leader of a political party like we are, fight for your own parties like we fought for Jubilee. I am able to come and speak about these issues here as Secretary General of Jubilee because I fought for Jubilee for the last couple of years, and I want to thank everybody else who helped us fight along, the whole family of Azimio, led by Raila Amolo Odinga. He was at the forefront, Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa and Martha Karua. They all fought for Jubilee, the NADCO team. You need every opportunity you have. Fight for that freedom, because it might not be beneficial to you, but it will save the life of another. Then we must really continue saying pole for this, even those young people are taught, and condemn those people who killed them. And we really want to get all of them. They will have to give way. Let me tell you, when Kome allowed the police officers to mistreat us when you are doing Azimio demonstration, he eventually had to resign. And why did he resign? Because of many things, including the fact that now we know he wasn't quite in control of the people who were harassing us. There was another squad that was getting instructions from elsewhere, but he was getting the beating. We were blaming him. So he gave way. What was it? Boynet came out, and I remember going to his office, and he was really rude to us, and on the issue of permits or authority. Again, we fought. He's still in employment, but no longer doing what he was doing in Nairobi. So we are not going to let Ragat have his way. No. We must continue fighting until at one point we hope this country will wake up to people who can manage our affairs better. And again, we have the constitution. So even Isaac Hassan, one of the senior lawyers in this country, he was there at IEBC, so we know a little bit about his history also. He needs to make sure that IPOA does what is expected of them. If they are effective, every police officer will be very cautious when he is handling you.
Jeremiah,
even the way they arrest you.
I want to make a connection between the institutions that govern any nation. And if we look at Kenya, for example, we know what Parliament, which is made up of National Assembly and Senate, is supposed to do. Now, one of those is representation. Right? And because of the fact that you cannot have representation by everybody expressed at any one time at the same time, that is why the system of governance brought in these individuals, so that you have a smaller number of people having taken into mind the thoughts and the feelings and the expressions of their people, that they would be able to go to one place and represent their people. That is why they are there. I'm not even talking about oversight. Okay, maybe I'm not even talking about budget making. I'm not talking about legislation. Representation. Because essentially in some cases, it would then lead to the legislation or the lawmaking that we are talking about. Is it possible that the heartbeat or the tone or the song that a nation is singing at any one given time would not be able to be represented by the people who were sent there by nature of the ballot to say, you know what, we're not discussing anything else? It can be unprecedented that a time when something like this is happening, and unfortunately has been the color of this for a while, to say we have no other business than to make sure certain things go in a certain way as we represent the people, and because of that we will stop until it does. I would imagine that is the job that is then supposed to be done by these people who represent the larger number of Kenyans. Is it not?
You captured this perfectly well. And that is why we have our institution called the National Assembly, where national leaders assemble to discuss issues that affect the nation Kenya. Unfortunately, the manner in which we have continued electing our representatives, and I have said this in many of our Jubilee forums, we have stopped having national leaders. We now have village leaders, people who are just localized to their own regions. And for as long as Albert Ojwang does not come from your home area, it doesn't affect you. You only make noise, go to the streets when your own constituent has been affected. It doesn't prick your conscience when a person has been. Remember what happened when JM was killed. The people who are more focal were from far away the mountain than those who are within the mountain. It was led by Elijah Mwangare, all the way from the other side, James Olengo and the others. Today, you only hear people from that region, that county, being focal and making all the noise. Why? Because we are not producing national leaders. We are now producing more localized people. Yesterday, you see what happens in the Senate. When is it yesterday or the day before? The day before, when the issue again was before the Senate.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there was a pleasure being given at the command center by SKM, Kalonzo Musyoka, and the former vice president and the others. What did we see? Members, senators would pose a question to the security officers. But since the pleasure that is going on at Karen is from leaders whom they have interest with, they actually left the Senate. They left the greeting of those police officers, and they were supposed to be doing it on our behalf, and went to stand behind people giving us a press statement. That's how the institution of Parliament has been demeaned. And again, the first assignment that this UDA government had was to capture Parliament by having a force majority on their side, ensuring that members of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, don't have a voice, because it is a voice that is paid for. You remember Osoro himself saying, I was giving this amount of money for people to behave in this manner. Koiburi also came on and said the same thing. And these are statements that have been issued by members of Parliament, this current Parliament. Not to say that it started with this one, but this one to me is notorious for many things. But William was clear in his mind. For me to have my way, I must capture Parliament. For me to be able to capture IPOA, which reports to Parliament, to capture EACC, which reports to Parliament, all these independent constitutional commission, for me to be able to manage them, I must manage Parliament. So the institution that has failed us, number one, is members of Parliament. And that is why when Wele was murdered, you saw the reaction of Kenyans. You may be, you sound very unhappy now because one of your own has been killed. But how many people are being killed? Look at this. How is it that we must be told by you in the media that in the last 4 months, 20 Kenyans have died in the hands of police officers? Not a single member of Parliament has gone to the floor to seek. By the way, the standing orders provide for what you have just said.
Yes.
Right.
An opportunity for the Parliament to stop doing everything else and to discuss the issue of Albert.
Yet you see,
and even before that, then it's with your permission. Yesterday, Parliament had the golden opportunity
to stop it all,
given to them by God. They had the budget. They should have objected to the leading of the budget until we have answers to these people.
Absolutely.
But they were there. In fact, what they did is, instead of even sitting in Parliament to listen on our behalf, again, the seats were all empty.
Yeah, and it is where I was actually headed, because the National Assembly with 349 seats, we only had around 100 in there, and one would hope this was an opportunity for them to discuss these issues.
They should have stopped the reading of the budget.
Yes,
and
yes.
Today, everybody, because the whole the East African region was reading the budget yesterday, you use those opportunities to go get the executive to be responsive to you.
But
and the executive is normally very cautious of such dates and such happenings, because they know that they have to be careful on the behavior of members of. But as it is today, captured.
But SG, as bleak as it seems, as bad as it looks, there has to be a way forward and a solution to all this madness. Let's call it for what it is. For all this madness,
Yes.
it has to end. So which way, Kenya, which way for the citizens of this country to say, finally, we have demanded this and we see something is happening. What will crack that rock?
Remember, again, I keep saying remember, Dennis, and I remember immediately that I might just be telling you because you are part of our youthful generation that has given us hope in this country, the Gen Z and millennials. We had something called Matatu madness in this country.
Mishuki.
Matatu madness. And it took Michuki alone, of course, with the goodwill from the executive and the parliament to deal with the madness. He came up with rules. Unajua tulikuwa tunawekwa kama viazi. Unawekwa and for as long as there was somebody outside wanting to board, there was space inside. It didn't matter whether you are sick, aged, whatever. But it took him to just say enough is enough. That's where we are. We will need just that one person to come and say all this madness, enough.
You know, I think that
Let's take this direction. Again, we also had the madness of our economic decline during the KANU regime. And Kibaki comes in. We are doing very poorly negative economic growth. But before he even walks to State House, says enough, every child must go to school. It will take one individual who has conviction and who is not bothered about personal greed, because for as long as you are asking, what commission am I getting from that tender? You can't help us. The slightest. You need somebody who knows you have only X number of days, months, years to do what you can do and then move on.
Is it time?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it time? Even
yes.
as we come to the end of this, is it time? We say all these things. We say drain the swamp. Is it time to go back to the drawing board and clean everything up and start from the beginning?
It's time for Kenyans to go back to the drawing board and clean everything. Let me tell you, I know this may sound like it's too far from where we are, but it is part of it. You see, now there are many things, including people saying, including myself, saying one term. It's time to change. It's time to. Kenyans, if you listen to Kenyans, kule kwa bosho, you see, now I've remembered that even it's not bosho in my area, it is tunapatiwa kitu inaitwa noe. I don't know whether mnajua noe ni nini. Noe is the soybean.
Okay.
It's Noroga. And soybean was not a very respected chakula sana kwa sababu iko na shida yake kwa tumbo. Na ndio inaletwa kwetu. Na wengine wanapatiwa mashini ya kusiaga mahindi na mengine. But that's a story for another day. If you talk to Kenyans today, and especially the younger generation, they are looking at us kama vile tu wanatuona kwa few sasa. Unasema hii, but if you sit with them, they have made up their minds as to what do they want to do. And I have a feeling that they are talking of a clean slate. And we need to be very careful, those of us who are looking for positions or who are viewing themselves as deserving to become XYZ in the coming regime, that the conversation among Kenyans might be a little different.
Moving forward and want to watch.
It is likely to be a clean slate. My position is how I wish we can get a little clean slate that helps us to turn completely to the opposite direction of what is happening today. That is not easy because I want to become XYZ in the next government. You want to, and you're working very hard, and Kenyans are resonating with you. But I hope that when the time comes, we will all be held accountable for things we have done, said in the past, because if we don't do that, it will be very naive of us as Kenyans to expect anything different after the elections.
Jeremiah Kioni, Secretary General of the Jubilee Party, has been here with us this hour. Stuff to think about, isn't it?
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.